truth is nobody knows anything. But what we do is we create reference points, we put lines on things, we label things. We do that to understand the world, we do that to communicate with each other. A reference point is simply something you use to point to something else. It's a reference. It's like me pointing my finger at the tree over there. And when I point my finger at that tree, you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm referring to. You know what I'm referencing. As I continue to inquire into what is me and who I am, I begin to see how much of it is a reference point. It's a illusion. It's coming from me trying to present myself to the world in a way that others can then easily understand. Because we want to be understood by others and we want to be able to communicate with others. But a real downside here is that the truth of who we are is not referenced by words or descriptions or ideas, concepts or beliefs. These are all reference points. These are all things that are pointing to something that isn't real. And what I mean by real is something that is created in the mind. So what I would say is, quote unquote, real is something you can see, touch, taste, without the mind's discriminator that's putting on a set of narratives around whatever that you are perceiving. And so this narrative results in a failure to understand the truth of who you are at the core of who you are. And so this path is about revealing who you are beyond those concepts, labels, ideas, narratives. And I think a place where I started to question this was with the workplace, it was with the education system. It was with me seeing that there were a lot of people that had certain ideas of what life was. But what I started to realize is that everybody was faking it until they made it. Everybody was acting like they knew something. And what's crazy is there's nothing that can really be known. But there is often a quality or value that we put on people that can act like they know something because they understand the components that with the mind created components of the idea, of the thought, of the idea that's constructed through these different reference points, and they're able to communicate the reference points or able to move the reference points in a particular direction that facilitates some output in the real world, which is in itself quite amazing to think about. But the freedom here is also seeing that the reference points were illusions, and that they, just like everybody else, was born into this world without knowing anything conceptual. And so we start to learn to start to see things conceptually, and we put a lens on our reality. But ultimately, anybody at the workplace, anybody in life, anybody in the education system, even professors, people that have studied for years and years about a particular field, that seem to really understand and know something, they're still operating from a place of abstraction, operating from a place of concept, of the mind. And when we build on top of this mind, but what I start to see is then also the freedom that this allows, because when you realize that everybody started at the place that you kind of started at, and that nobody really knows anything at the deepest core fundamental level, because there is nothing you can truly conceptually know. And so I think that gives some freedom. But it also changes how you value everything. Because a lot of value is created in this world. It could be marketing, it could be the way things are relayed to you or communicated, but it creates some type of value that's based on the mind. Because what's to say that this leaf over here is any less valuable than a Gucci bag? It's not any less valuable technically, but we assign some sort of arbitrary value to it based on conditionings, based on how we perceive it, based on all of those things. But I think the trap here is that then we start to perceive ourselves as less valuable, because we get so used to seeing value based on how things are conceptually relayed to us. And so if we aren't successful, if we aren't performing how we want to be performing, if we aren't in the right relationship situation by a certain age, or successful by certain ages and certain things that we need to meet, well then we might not see ourselves as valuable, and we might look to others who have quote-unquote more success than us, and we see them as more valuable, and we perceive the world through this value lens, ultimately created and constructed by the mind. And whilst there's power in using concept to understand the world and being able to distinguish between things you prefer and don't prefer, the trap here is the part of the us who starts to use that same operating system to value ourselves less, and to value other things more, and to never feel complete, and to never feel whole. But the truth of it is that there's nothing that can't be whole. Because what unwholeness is just the mind projecting ideas about things needing to be in some fashion, some arrangement, other than what's happening right here and now. Reality needing to be different to what's right here and what's right now. So you can never not be whole. You can never not be complete. And so I wanted to end this video with that note. I was working through some internal blockages, pain body blockages, energetic blockages in my body today, and inquiring into a lot of these ideas has been something that's been coming up. Inquiring into, even if I do something bad, even if I don't follow my habits properly and do things like that would have made me criticize myself in the past. I've started to really notice, well, who's that criticizer? And then also, is there anybody to really be critical of? And I think when you start to do these things, it starts to shift that relationship with that mind-based operating system that needs to use the mind to understand everything and to try to control yourself through that mind rather than just allowing things to unfold in a way that is more spacious, more open, more kind, more loving, more compassionate.